Okay, good morning. Time now a few minutes after 8 o'clock in the morning in Tokyo, Friday, September the 10th, 2021. Welcome to another edition of the World Bank Group Morning Seminar organized by the World Bank Tokyo office. My name is Koichi Omori. I am Senior External Affairs Officer of the World Bank based in Tokyo. We organize many online seminars introducing the latest report and publications presented by the World Bank Group economists and specialists. This morning, we are featuring the new publication, Development in Practice, the Dime Analytics Data Handbook, which came out in June this year. This is going to be a very unique session compared to the past 115 morning seminars held in the last 3 years, as the book is about the research, development research itself. With us connecting from Washington, we have three experts from the team. And let me introduce very briefly each one of them and ask perhaps each one of them to say a few words saying, about introducing yourself in terms of the roles held in the team. First, our main presenter, we have Luisa Andrade from Washington. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to you, Luisa.
Hi, Koichi. Good evening. It's 7 p.m. here in DC. I am a junior data scientist at the Dime Analytics team, and I work in training our researchers and also on writing statistical software code, mostly in Stata and R.
Great, thank you, Luisa. Next, we have Chris Bujakfar, and I don't know if I pronounce his family name correctly, so I practice a little bit. But Chris, good evening, good morning to you in Washington. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Kristoffer Bjerkefur. It's very different to pronounce for non-Swedish. Even Benjamin and Louisa have struggles to pronounce it, so it's okay. I'm a data science consultant at Dime. All three of us, we overlap a lot in our duties that we do, but I particularly also support in the in data security and data privacy and help the research teams plan and organize that. And I also lead the work of helping to set up infrastructure when we do extra powerful things. But then we all collaborate on all the type of resources that you will hear about today. So thank you very much for having us.
Great, Chris. Thirdly, let me introduce Benjamin Daniels, also from the Dime team. Ben, good evening to you. How about you?
Great, thank you so much. As Chris said, we share a lot of responsibilities on the team. One of the things that I focus on is the development of training materials for new hires and for continuing education within the Dime group. So that's what I've been working on the most, and obviously a lot of that has led to our work on the book. So that's why we're thrilled to be here today.
Great, thank you very much. So next 40 minutes, I will listen to the keynote presentation by Lisa and the team. And then following the presentation, I'll read the question. But if you didn't have opportunities to send your question in advance, please do so even during the seminar using online form posted on the announcement page for the seminar, or you can simply post your question on the chat screen of the YouTube YouTube screen. I'll read your question after the keynote presentation and then ask the team to respond. With that, I would like to ask Luisa to come in to start the presentation formally. Thank you.
Thank you, Koichi, and thank you again for having us here today, and thanks to everyone who's watching. This is, as Koichi mentioned earlier, a book that has just come out in June. And apart from the three of us who are here today, we also have one more co-author, Maria Jones, who's a survey specialist in our team, Dime Analytics. And she's also our team lead. She's on leave right now, so she will not be joining the discussion for today. The two links that you can see here in this slide are how you can get the book. We have both a physical copy of the book that can be ordered through Amazon, and there's also a PDF that you can download on the World Bank's Open Knowledge repository. So briefly, what I want to talk to you about today for the next 30 or 40 minutes is first, why we wrote this book and why we think it's important. Then I'm going to quickly give you an overview of the topics that we cover, because it's a long book and unfortunately we cannot get into details of everything that is included there in 40 minutes. But I will cover what I think are the most important takeaways that I believe everyone who reads the book, we expect to take as lessons from it. At the very end, I will also point you to where you can find not only the book, but also other resources that our team creates and makes available for the global development community. So first of all, why did we write this book and why we think it's important? Well, over the past 3 or 4 decades, the way development economics research is made has changed drastically. And as you can see here in this graph that was published in the American Economic Review, in 2015, more than 95% of development economics papers published in top journals were empirical papers, and that is compared to 60% in 1980. And as part of this shift, researchers are increasingly working with complex data and large teams, since actually developing empirical research involves quite a more complex workflow than for other types of research. So when we conduct empirical research, the research design itself is a key component for the quality and credibility of the research results. But the data that was used and how the research design informed the analysis of this data are just as important, because empirical research results are only as informative as they can accurately reflect the reality they are trying to shed light on. So today, research consumers, publishers, journals, and funders expect to be able to verify by themselves that the data is high quality and that the analysis was conducted as is described in the paper or report that they are reading. However, the research training that we receive when coming from school as development economists does not yet reflect the changes that were shown in the graph a few slides ago. So there is little practical guidance on how to produce high quality data and high quality code, both effectively and efficiently. There are very few resources on the conventions, standards, and best practices that are becoming more and more a necessity for credible empirical research. As a result, we have all, as empirical development researchers, been managing data without actually being taught how to do it ahead of time, and we are figuring out the best way to manage this data as we do it. That means we are often reinventing solutions and reinventing the wheel and coming up with ad hoc ways to solve the challenges that are presented to us as we do it. Because of this, disconnect between what we are taught in school and what we do as empirical researchers, this is why we felt the need to write this book. And in fact, this is also why our whole team, Diamond Analytics, was created. So our team is part of DIME, which is the Development Impact Evaluation Department of the World Bank. And what we do is work across different research teams in the department to make sure that everyone has access to the resources they need to create high quality empirical research. So in our day-to-day, we work continuously in this kind of cycle to identify the issues that affect the data work in projects developed inside our department, to learn from the solutions that teams have already developed and to try to perfect the solutions and create new ones and always make them more accessible, more efficient, document these practices and these solutions, and finally share them with the global development community. So a big part of the work that we do is to create public goods like this book that we're talking about. And we hope that in doing so, we are able to increase the quality of the data and therefore of the evidence that is generated not only by our department, but by all development researchers. So after working on empirical projects for a little bit more than a decade in DIME and conducting hundreds of research projects and learning from these projects from our department, we felt that we were in a point where we were ready to share both a framework and a workflow to guide researchers through the course of a whole research project. And this is what this book does. This is kind of the culmination of the lessons that we've learned as our team, as a department, in implementing empirical research projects. So what this book does is to focus not on, what are the methods of development economics, because there are already great tools available out there for it. We actually cite and link to some of them in the book, but what we want to address is what researchers are not taught in school. So for example, we will all be told that we need to run regressions, but we are not told how to decide which software to use. We work with co-authors and with multiple team members, but we don't necessarily know ahead of time how to collaborate in research teams. We are told that research transparency and reproducibility are very important principles in science, but we don't really learn the tools to put this in practice as empirical researchers. So the main audience of this book, as you can see based on everything that I just said, are development researchers, but it is also a good resource for practitioners and policymakers and research consumers in general who want to be well-informed research consumers, who want to be able to judge by themselves about the quality of the evidence that they are consuming. So let me take you through the contents of the book. We designed this handbook to be a highly practical resource so that the readers can immediately begin to collaborate on large and long-term empirical research projects and use the methods and the tools discussed in the book. So the graph that you see here, the diagram that you see here, outlines our understanding of what is the life cycle of an empirical research project. And what we do is provide a narrative of how to go across this life cycle from one stage to the next. So I'll take you very quickly through this life cycle and through what we try to teach, or we try to share about each of the steps that are involved in it. The very first chapter, that's chapter 1, talks about the 3 principles that guide the recommendations throughout this book: reproducibility, transparency, and credibility. These principles are all interconnected because creating credible evidence is based on having research that is not only well designed and implemented, but that can also be easily accessed, understood, and reproduced both by other researchers and by research consumers. So the first chapter will explain why we believe that these principles are important, and also how to put them in practice across the life cycle of an empirical development research project. The second chapter will discuss the decisions that need to be made before a project starts, and that no one actually tells you that you need to make them, and that are oftentimes made implicitly. This goes from very simple things like, how will you organize your files? What software will you use? How will your team communicate? And how will this communication be documented for future reference? And it goes into more complex consequences, such as what are the ethical requirements of a study? How are they translated into data security protocols within the team, and institutional approval from third parties that guide research ethics. The third chapter is where we get to what most people consider the beginning of the research life cycle, which is the research design. We, as I mentioned, do not get into methodology or how to design your research, but what we discuss is how an abstract research design can be translated into data, and how to make sure that this correspondence between research design and data is documented, and that the research team that is implementing a project has a shared understanding of how this research design will come into shape through the data. So this involves identifying the data that will be needed and creating a data map that shows how you will go from collecting measurements from the world into creating indicators that translate abstract concepts, but also how to guarantee that your team has a common vocabulary for the whole duration of your research project. So chapter 4 will talk about acquiring development data, and everyone who has done empirical research has at some point received or collected data. But there are a few steps in this process that many researchers never knew were necessary until they ran into problems such as data leakages or not having well-defined use terms for the data that they were actually researching. And chapter 4 will tackle these issues and explain how to make sure that you have an understanding of all the rights associated to your data, how you need to implement data security protocols. And since DIME has acquired a lot of experience in collecting survey data, this chapter will also discuss a lot the best practices to plan and implement data collection and create high quality, originally collected data. Chapter 5 we'll then discuss how we can prepare this data to be analyzed in statistical software. And this is what most people call data cleaning or data processing. The main focus of this chapter is how to make sure that this data can be, that the work that went into cleaning and processing the data can be understood and redone if necessary, both by whoever implemented it originally and need to do it again in the future. I think it's a very common issue in empirical research and in writing code in general, that you write some piece of code and then you look at it a few months later and you don't remember what you did or why. And then you cannot create the same graph that you had created a few months ago. So we try to address these issues in this chapter, and we break down the data cleaning processes into the four tasks that are listed here. So removing confidential information, identifying the unit of observation of the data sets or tidying data, validating data quality to make sure that your data accurately reflects the reality you're measuring, and then finally making sure that your data is in a format that can be easily handled by statistical software. And then in chapter 6, we finally get into data analysis. We will not, again, cover what method should I use to analyze my data, what kind of regression model I should be using. We will mostly focus on how to create a workflow that automates the analysis and creates results that researchers can easily update, and that other people that not the original research team can easily reproduce. So the focus here is on a transparent and reproducible workflow for data analysis. Finally, chapter 7 covers the processes and tools for publication. And I think the most novel concept that we talk about in this chapter is that when you are publishing research outputs, you are not thinking only of a paper or a report, and this is something that I'll get into more detail soon, but also how do I publish the data, how do I publish code, how do I make sure that everything is well documented. So we offer a framework on how to address each of these steps, and also on how to collaborate on a paper and report in a reproducible manner. The book also has 3 appendices that don't necessarily fit into a particular point in the narrative that I mentioned of what is the life cycle of a research project, but it discusses things that are useful throughout all the stages. So we have a coding guide that lists down what we think are the best practices and what we recommend for the researchers inside DIME and across the development research community. We have a DIME Analytics resources directory that point to where you can find more information on all these topics. And we also have a short research design compendium. So basically, we do discuss how different research designs translate into different data needs and what you need to think as you are designing your research in terms of how that will reflect in the data. We wanted this book to be a very practical resource. So there are a few items that you will see throughout the whole book that we hope will make it easier for whoever is reading it. to understand how to put things in practice. So the first thing that we have there are summary boxes, and these are just like very easy places to identify what you will learn in each chapter and what you should think about depending on your role in a research team, but we'll also point to more resources that you can find about the topics of the book. Each chapter of the book and pretty much every section will also follow a real life project, the Demand for Safe Spaces project that was implemented in Rio de Janeiro. And basically you can see how these are all the requirements that we discussed are applied in real life to one particular example. And there are a lot of links to the DEM Wiki, which is pretty much a companion to the book. It offers more details and examples about the topics that we cover in the book. And while the book has this narrative form, so you know what to expect at each point of a research project, in the DEM Wiki, you can find less structured details about each of the activities that are involved in it. So as you can see, there is a lot of content in the book. We will not be able to cover everything that is in there. But what I do want to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes is to highlight a few takeaways that I believe are lessons that permeate the whole book and that can be applied to all research projects. And more than that, they are the keys to understanding what is the different mindset or the different mental model of research that we are suggesting that everyone takes in this book. So the first lesson is that research is a social process. So empirical development research is not the work of a lonely scientist closed off in a lab for years. It is the result of the collaboration of people that have multiple different roles, from designing research to actually creating policy and creating programs that will then be evaluated, to communicating with the people who are affected by development projects, to collecting data, to working very heavily on code. So these are people with very different backgrounds, and they all need to have a shared understanding of this research, even if each of them are doing separate parts of a project. So having a clear mental map of what the research project is and what is the workflow to implement it is very important when you are working in a team. And we often, as researchers, are trained as lonely scientists in lab in school, and then we get out of school and need to interact with this very complex teams. And in terms of practical advice, that often means that the ideal tool is the tool that will be used. So we want to agree on processes and tools that are accessible for everyone in the team, and strive for the most transparent and reproducible tool that everyone will in fact use, instead of aiming for the moon and ending up not actually following the protocols that are set by the own research team. The second lesson, and I already mentioned this, and this is something that we always stress to everyone that's starting to work at DIME, is that the output of research is not just a paper or report. This is still, unfortunately, a very common understanding between researchers, that what they care about is only this particular piece that will then be published somewhere. But more and more, everyone who's involved in the research world expects to be able to scrutinize by themselves the way that this piece that is published got to its conclusions. So just writing down in a paper, I did X, is not enough for the people who are reading it to actually believe and buy in to your results. What we consider the whole set of outputs of research are, yes, the final publication piece, the paper or report that is coming out of that research, but also the data that was used to create the final results, the original data that was then transformed to be analyzed, the code that did both of these things, and extensive documentation explaining everything in plain English. So what credible research is research that maximizes transparency and reproducibility, and that means that you make as much of your materials open to the world as the ethical principles of maintaining confidentiality of the human subjects that you are studying allow. And one other thing that we implement a lot in our department is that the code that creates the final results should be reviewed as much as the actual text that is finally published. So inside our department, we have quarter rounds of code review, and we also have reproducibility checks for all the research outputs, the papers that come out of our department. We, in DAM Analytics, look at the code, run the code, and make sure that it is reproducible and transparent. The next lesson is to simply not reinvent the wheel. One theme that permeates the whole book is that standardizing and simplifying data tasks will save everyone time, and by doing that will increase the quality of your research because you have more time to focus on other aspects that are not coming up with ad hoc solutions to every problem that will show up during the course of your project. And there are two other lessons that are very much connected to it, which are the last 2 points that I want to touch on today. The first one is that investing time pays off. Researchers are busy. We're often working in multiple projects at a time. And then we think, oh, I do not have time to learn a new coding language. So I'll just keep using whatever point and click tool, or I'll just keep using Excel to create the results because I already know how to do this. Or they think, well, I do not have time to think about what I'm going to do in a year when I receive the data because I have other things that need my attention right now. But in our experience, implementing processes and coming up with solutions in a hurry actually create problems that will end up taking a lot more of your time than if you had invested time upfront to learn a few tools, and we discuss a few tools that we think are important in the book, including at least one statistical software language, a version control system, and coming up with predefined processes and standards that you will follow throughout your project. So this will, in the end, save you from having to deal with the problems that come up when you make decisions in a hurry. And again, very much connected to this is the idea that you should plan ahead. So doing meta work will make your work a lot easier. Why? Because many of the workflows that are needed for a project are path dependent. And making changes at an advanced stage of a project can be difficult and can be time consuming. So for example, if you already have a lot of code that uses a given folder structure, then when you realize that that folder structure does not serve your needs and you want to change it in the future, you will also break all of your code. On the other hand, if you think about this in advance and you think about what are the data sources that I need, what are the different tasks that I'm going to need to implement, how will I organize them, then that will actually pay off. The time investment will pay off in the future. So a few of the things that we recommend planning ahead for are folder structure, are the tools that you will want to use, because also changing software tools across a project can create problems, can prevent reproducibility, can sometimes make so that you cannot access some of the data that you had accessed before. So these are things that are worth planning ahead. That's why we have a whole chapter about setting the stage. And another thing that is also, I believe, very important to plan ahead is exactly this figure that you see here. This is what we call a data flow chart. And what it does is it maps out all the different data sources that you have in a project and how they will be combined and transformed to create the final research indicators, the analysis indicators that will be used for your data analysis. So these are just a few examples, but in general, planning ahead is a very good principle that we unfortunately don't implement as much as would be required. And of course, that doesn't mean that you are committed, that your hands are tied and that nothing can be changed. It can, the reality of the work that we do often prompts us to make adjustments, but it's also easier to make those adjustments if we have a very good understanding of what that will lead to in the future. So those are the takeaways that I hope that everyone who reads the book will carry with them, but that hopefully you are also convinced, even before reading the book, that are important. If you do so want to read the book, which I hope is the case after this, as I mentioned, there are two ways to get a copy. One is through Amazon, and you can get a physical copy. You can also download a PDF version of the printed edition at the Open Knowledge repository of the World Bank. But apart from that, this book is also a living product that is transparently created in a reproducible manner and version controlled and accessible in its latest form through GitHub. And we very much welcome any feedback, suggestions, and also corrections that you may find relevant for us. And you can send them either through GitHub itself, if you know how to use it and you want to share it there, or you can send us an email. And as I've mentioned, this is a living product. We are constantly working on it. So hopefully we'll be able to implement any suggestions even in real time before our next edition comes out. And if you want more resources or different types of resources on all of the different things that I mentioned today, we do, as all of us mentioned in our introductions, create a lot of open trainings. They're available at the link in this presentation in Open Science Framework. We also have a wiki that is also a living product that anyone can register to edit and make contributions. And this is where we keep an updated guide of and detailed guide of all the tasks in development research. We have 2 libraries of code, of reproducible code that you can use to create data visualizations. And we also have 2 data packages that are meant to make sure that many of the tasks that we do as empirical development researchers can be made in a easy, accessible, efficient way, and we have to spend less time doing code and can spend more time on other research activities. Thank you all. That's all I had to share for today. Thank you for staying here, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Luisa, for your presentation, giving us the big snapshot of what the development research in practice report is about. Let me, start the one little simple question. What is the size of the entire DIME team? How many people you have in the team? And also specifically in your DIME analytics team, how many people do you have? I'm asking because DIME team is a very unique team, specifically focusing on impact evaluation. And then many people may ask, may raise this question. Oh, what's the size of the team? How many people really do you have in a team as an expert? Thinking about where they stand right now in implementing the impact evaluation. So I just wanted to ask this question first. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I believe DIME currently has around 200 people between consultants, economists, research coordinator and analysts. We currently have, yes, almost 60 staff members in our team and around 140 consultants. And we are divided into 4 units by thematic areas, and at any given point in time have around 150 to 100 ongoing impact evaluations. DIME Analytics, which is our smaller team inside the department, has 8 people between full-time staff and consultants that work like Ben, who has a full-time research job and also is also part of DIME Analytics. So we're 8 people.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for your response. Let me continue the reading question which we received in advance from one of the participants. How does DIME team start working with research teams or project teams working directly involved in the lending and other operations? I mean, question is perhaps who initiates the initial contact of the collaboration?
Actually, a very good question. What we usually do is that we hold workshops where we invite both researchers and policymakers, World Bank project teams to come together and discuss what are their current projects and what is the learning agenda that they want to be able to develop from their project. And then we match specific projects to researchers who can work on development impact evaluations for those projects. So obviously through COVID, this process has been, a little bit more difficult than we would usually go all and meet in for a week, but hopefully we'll be able to resume that soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, the question is actually the question that I was asking Luisa before we start the session. So let me raise this question about the virtual course titled Development Research in Practice, which you run for 8 weeks recently. How many participants did you have, and then who are they? Who are the participants? For the viewers who missed the course, I mean, those of them who are watching this seminar but missed the opportunity to register and attend your virtual course. Are you planning to organize another round, or are you going to share the recordings later on the website?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the book has a lot of content, and it didn't fit in 40 minutes, but it did fit over 8 weeks of online course. We had almost 3,000 people enrolled, about 2,800 attendees, and most of them were either World Bank staff or researchers, academic researchers, and about 70% of the attendees were from Sub-Saharan Africa. So we were very glad to be reaching practitioners and researchers throughout the world. So the course was a remote course. We live streamed it in YouTube, and all the recordings can be found online. And all the lecture materials, exercises, reading lists that were part of the course are available in Open Science Framework.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
I posted the link in the chat in WebEx. I don't think everyone watching this is able to see the link, but if now you have it, and hopefully you can share it forward. So this is where we stored all the material, and there's links to everything, and it was a self-paced course. So we hope that it will be also possible to equally possible to follow along afterwards and watch the recordings. Obviously, the quiz and the certificate won't be available for someone that takes this class course when we're not offering it. But otherwise, all the material should be there, and all the recordings should be there.
Thank you very much. For the benefit of the viewers watching the YouTube live streaming, I have just reposted your link, which you just sent to me via the chat on the WebEx site. Okay, the next question that I received during the session. How does the DIME team collaborate with other partners, particularly bilateral partners? Would you please mention a few examples?
I'm not sure that I understand exactly what bilateral partners is, but we do have a lot of projects that evaluate programs that are not implemented by the World Bank. So we have, for example, large partnerships with the EU, with the World Food Program and FAO. So although we we sit in the World Bank, our researchers sit at the World Bank, we evaluate programs that are conducted by different organizations across the world. I'm not sure that was exactly the question, but I hope I hope that was the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, I think what it means is UK, US, French. I mean those bilateral agencies or bilateral partners rather than UN or MDBs such as multilateral partners. So if you have any examples of the collaboration with the bilateral partners.
So, and I think that a lot of the projects, so it's usually not small projects where it makes sense to do a full-scale impact evaluation. There are absolutely examples when we do small impact evaluations, but most of them, especially if data is not available and we need to collect that data ourselves, that tends to be a little bit expensive, and therefore they tend to be big projects. In those big projects, there tend to be many partners. Bilateral partners, absolutely, some of them. We don't. So I think the reason why we don't have the best answer to this is we don't tend to work directly with them. They tend to be very much involved, and then we meet with them. The researcher at Dime meet with them, but it's not something that we in Dime Analytics tend to work the most with. And I know that there's several countries, EU, the UK, or some teams that, or some bilateral partners that encourage the project to involve us, but they tend to be that we work with the bilateral partner and us are involved in a project that consists of many partners. But it's I don't know an example when we work directly with a bilateral partner. Apart from the UK has been very generous, and we should actually mention as well that they are the one who have financed the work for this book. So in that sense, we have a lot of great support from bilateral. But when we work with bilateral, tend to be in a more complex setup on a big project. Maybe that's the best answer we can give.
Yeah, and I would also add that it usually comes from an organization that finances projects, and as it finances the projects, it also creates incentives for these projects to develop impact evaluations. So as Chris mentioned, our team in particular in this product were funded by FCDO, and we also work, we have projects where the donors for particular projects are, for example, GIZ or NORAD. We do work a lot with them. Unfortunately, our team, Dime Analytics specifically, does not, so I don't have the more details to give on that.
Okay, thank you for the responses. Let me read one comment and one question. Comment from the Professor Yoshino. Thank you very much for your comment. Thank you very much for excellent explanation. As you mentioned, that recent research start without showing the theoretical model and to do empirical analysis. If empirical results would lead to different conclusions compared to the past, I would prefer to go back to the theory to explain why different results were obtained. I would like to recommend my students read the book. Thank you very much. So that's a question, comment from the Professor Yoshino. Thank you. And then there was a question posted on the YouTube chat section from the Kawamoto-san. Thank you very much for your question. How do you decide research topic? Are you given a topic from the other department in the World Bank, or you select topic considering the issues which World Bank is focusing on? So that's a comment and questions. I'd like to ask Luisa to come in.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. That's great. I agree. I also encourage your students to read the book. But about topics, so inside Dime, as I mentioned, we have 4 different units that focus on different topics. So the topics that our projects work on range from agriculture to gender to transport, climate change, conflict. and usually this comes from identifying points or agendas that really we need to develop more knowledge so that we can better deliver development projects. So that is definitely also linked to the World Bank priorities of what are our objectives and topics that are being prioritized by the bank.
Okay, thank you very much. The another posting on the chat screen, could you please share the link of online courses upcoming and archived? How to participate in such courses, please? Thank you very much. I have shared a link which Chris mentioned already on the chat screen. But if you have any additional suggestion, Louisa, for the viewers to be able to get updated on what will happen and what will be offered from the team and how people can sort of get informed and get involved in such activities. And then together with that, I would like to ask Louisa and Benjamin and Christopher to say final words for one round. Then we wrap up a session as we are hitting the 9 a.m. time in Tokyo shortly. Thank you.
Yes, great, thank you. Yeah, Chris had already sent the link. So all of our past training materials are available on Open Science Framework. So it's a short URL, osf.io/WZJTK. That's where all of our training sit. You can also go to our website that Ben has just linked, so worldbank.org/research/DIME data and analytics. And for future trainings, that if you want to watch trainings live and be notified as they are coming in, you can either look at our website, or you can also write to dime@worldbank.org and ask to be included in the mailing list. So this is usually how we advertise upcoming trainings. So thank you very much for having us today. I hope that this was useful for everyone, and I hope that you are convinced of the importance of creating transparent, reproducible, and credible research, and that you want to learn more about it either through our book or through other resources.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And then we tried to write this book. I know it's a very diverse audience on this event, so I think we will be especially interested in hearing feedback from some of you, or preferably all of you, because we have tried to write this book to be accessible for everyone and then link to more technical details. And if we would love to hear your feedback if that ambition, if we were successful with that ambition. So we love feedback. I think that's what our whole team builds on, that we try things on our teams, we get feedback from them, and then we reiterate, and then we hopefully with this book we can also do that in a more broader scale. Thank you very much for having us. Utsukuru-sama.
Yeah, thank you again. The one thing to build on Chris's and Luisa's comments is that if you check the DIME analytics site on the World Bank website, which we've just posted, we have a huge range of resources, and we take very seriously our role in providing the resources of the DIME group and the World Bank to not only the teams here, but also the general public across the development community worldwide. So we have a wide range of materials that are there, trainings that are available. We have a wiki site covering research and data methods. We have the book. And we make all of our reproducible research and other materials, fully publicly available as much as we can. Things range from relatively technical, code and data materials to high-level stuff that are designed for policymakers, for PIs, CTLs, and research leaders in every industry, And we hope that, we can find something that is useful for you and your team. And we take that very, very serious, as you'll see from the materials out there. So please always get in touch if there's anything more that we can provide, or something that would be helpful for us to work on. But we have a ton of stuff out there, and we're always looking for new ideas, and new opportunities. So thank you again for having us, and we hope this is helpful and inspiring to everyone as well. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. We had a pleasure of having Louisa, Chris, and Benjamin connecting from Washington from the DIME team. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Okay, great. The World Bank, little announcement. The World Bank is currently running a virtual recruitment mission for hiring Japanese nationals, posting 13 World Bank positions with TOL on the World Bank Tokyo office website. We would like to encourage those of you who are interested in working at the World Bank to apply. Two forthcoming morning seminars, September 24th on the Walking the Talk report, which is about primary health care, and September 28th on social sustainability and inclusion in South Asia, somehow related to some of the TOLs posted on the current recruitment programs. And one more morning seminar focusing on human development sector and the World Bank will be shortly finalized and then posted on the website. These three forthcoming morning seminars are indirectly related to the World Bank Group recruitment mission virtually currently going on. And once again, if you are interested in working at the World Bank, please take a look at the World Bank Tokyo office website for further details. With that, once again, thank you very much for participating. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next week. Thank you.